Hey everybody, it's Aiden here once again after what seems like an eternity, and welcome back to some rFactor 2 as it's time for a mod review I feel I should have done a very long time ago. I just never got round to doing it. And that mod is the FVR Factor V8 Supercars mod. Now, there are some of you that may be watching that have been here since I had around 15 subscribers or so, that have seen me use this mod in races and other bits and pieces, and well over 7,000 people have seen my Assetto Corsa V8 Supercars mod review, and in both the Assetto Corsa and rFactor 2 mods, you'll have heard me use all sorts of superlatives to describe them. Needless to say, I love V8 Supercars. For bang for your buck racing, it's got to be the best motorsport out there, and every time I watch it, the stands are full. If you've never watched any of it, some of it is on YouTube in its entirety, and I suggest you go and watch it. Yeah, after this video is finished, obviously. Now, the main way I try to describe V8 Supercars is if NASCAR got really drunk one night and fucked the British Touring Car Championship. The end result being big, loud, bogan Aussie muscle cars providing hours of entertainment. And this mod is a fantastic way of recreating those Sundays at Phillip Island, Adelaide, Bathurst and all the other tracks around Australia. So what this review aims to do is showcase the mod, tell you a little bit about it, show you the whole thing because I only really drive the Ford, and try to explain why I love it and V8 Supercars as a whole. And I'll also be showing you a little bit how to drive these things properly, as a lot of people say that these cars are like frightened horses on frozen lakes. And they can be, which is part of what makes them so fun to drive. So what do we get in this mod then? Well, this mod review only really concerns the 2016 season mod, but the 2014 and 15 mods are also available. And FVR is currently working on the 2018 season, so that will be really exciting to see, and you can bet your ass I'll be looking at that when it finally comes round. Now, the 2016 mod contains 4 cars. You've got the Ford Falcon FGX, the Holden Commodore, Volvo S60 and the Nissan Altima. In the 2014 and 15 seasons, you've got the Mercedes E-Class to also have some fun in. Now, believe it or not, despite these cars having 4 distinct looking bodywork designs, they've all got similar performance values, which we'll look into when we get out on track. Now, as per the V8 Supercars rules, all the cars are the same length, height, width and use the same tyres, rims and loads of other control parts, with the only real difference being the engines. Each car produces the same amount of drag and downforce, which must have required a lot of brains and maths to be able to pull off. So there's a lot of parity and more emphasis on driver skill. Well, in theory anyway. Now, each of the cars demoed today will be using a 5-litre naturally aspirated V8 engine that in real life has fuel injection and runs on bioethanol. The engine itself can crank out between 620 to 650 horsepower, which is rather a lot for a car that has virtually nothing weighing those rear wheels down. And each car costs around $250,000 Aussie dollars, and the engines cost about 50 grand. So, let's have a look at these models, starting, we've got the Holden Commodore here, that's Percat's car, and then moving on to Chaz Mostert's super cheap auto Ford Falcon, Scott McLaughlin's Volvo, and finally Todd Kelly's Nissan. Now, this mod is quite old, the textures aren't quite up to the sort of standards that you'd expect from more modern mods, but you know what, I'm not really bothered because when I'm racing I'm not really looking at that kind of thing. You know, from the outside cameras, yeah, it can be a bit pixelated, and you can see on that Volvo there that it is a bit, you know, needs a bit of a touch up, but like I say, it's an old mod. You don't really want to concern yourself with the graphics when you're racing, because if you've got time to look at these things, you're going too slow or you're crashing too often. But when the 2018 mod comes out, I think that the textures will look even better with how FVR Factor has progressed, as well as rFactor 2. So, as we've just seen the cars go around here, that's Mostert's car again. I think we'll take these to Adelaide, which is a nice fun track, and we'll really give these cars a good hammering. Starting with the Ford, because I know that one. So here we are, late afternoon at Adelaide in South Australia. Now, Adelaide has got to be one of the most beautiful sounding town names in the world, don't you think? No? Okay, right, moving on. In a first for a mod review of mine, we've actually got all the other cars on the grid in this practice session. So you'll be able to see everybody going about their practicey business as Dale Wood and Todd Kelly start their run out the pit lane. We'll see them go past. There we go, the Nissans. Cam Waters also going out. There he goes. Monster Energy 4 Falcon. We're just going to have a look at the setup screen first, just so we know what's going on. Starting fuel, I've got a couple of setups down here that I'm not really going to go and use because this is about default setups. Everything's like even playing field, and I'm not spending forever getting a setup for each car. But given how similar the performance is, I've never tried this. You probably could try copy-pasting a setup from the Ford to the Volvo, from the Volvo to the Holden. So general setups, lock gear ratios. There are various diff settings in the tuning menu of showroom view. So you've got like the Bathurst diff and the Sandown diff, which have like longer gear ratios because of the nature of the course, and these things will do about 180 miles an hour topping out, particularly at Bathurst. Suspension, well, we've got the magical, the mythical third spring. It's sort of like the G-spot when it comes to setting up a car. You know it exists, but you don't know what it does or where to find it. That's a terrible analogy, isn't it? Front suspension, rear suspension settings, anti-roll bars, all the usual stuff. Chassis with your caster and your weight distribution. I never fiddle with these, but if you're a setup guru, you probably know a bit more than me. And the advanced stuff, tyre pressures, we've got soft, hard, and wet tyres. I'm going to go out on the softs. Brake bias, max pedal force, all the usual stuff. So we're here to drive these cars. Let's go out and drive them. Well, we can turn all these off for a start. I'm going to put this on because there's something I want to show you. Oh god. That's the thing with Thrustmaster pedals. You've got to pump the brake just to get it to probably settle. And I'll move the that up a bit. So we're going to brake into turn 1 here. Just take a nice smooth line through the chicane. Get the power down. Brake nice and early for this next right-hander. Feed the power, and you can see that when I change gear, the car wants to spin the rear tyres out. Got Holdsworth, not Holdsworth, Davison behind me. I'm just going to move over for him. Changing into 4th, it still wants to spin the rears out. Gentle bit of braking for turn 8. Oh, I just clipped the wall. Not a good start. Sometimes coming out of these corners, particularly very slow first gear corners, you'll find yourself still feeding the power going into 3rd gear. As Davison enters the pit lane, presumably so he can have a go on Rihanna Crean, that is, not the Singist. Bit of curve hopping, always fun in these cars. But this car feels pretty heavy, because it is, and especially coming through the chase at Bathurst, you know, that right-hand kink just before the chicane, it's probably the best place to experience what a ton and a half of the V8 supercar feels like. You can sort of abuse every curb in these cars. Probably another reason why I enjoy them so much. I am a bit of a curb hopper. Bit of a curb abuser as well. I'll show you that feeding the power through the gear. 2nd, and now I'm in 3rd. And just after changing into 3rd there, I was still putting the power down. If that makes any sense. It's hard to talk and drive. I haven't really done a mod review in a while. Definitely feels a bit heavy. A little bit of understeer. which you'd expect oversteer in these things, given that the front end's where all the weight is. Kick him over, still on the way out. Probably got a bit too greedy with the throttle. I think when we come out the hairpin, I'll show you what the main mistake people in these cars make is. They think they're in a Formula 1 car, and that happens. Move out the way of that Volvo. Couldn't tell if Moffat or McLaughlin. But if you're too heavy on these tyres, you'll destroy them. We'll go for one more run to the final corner. Once you get the progressive nature of the throttle down, these things are a joy to drive. Just got to be smooth. That's all you've got to do. So there's that understeer. The Ford can feel like a boat at times. And like I say, going through the chase and braking, it's where a ton and a half of supercar really does feel like a ton and a half of supercar. Feeding through second there. Grab a bit of curb on the inside, let it run all the way out to the wall. Always a satisfying feeling. And then into the final corner once more. And there we go. Shame we didn't see many of the other cars, but there goes Lee Holdsworth in the Preston Hire car. I'm just going to pull into the middle of this gravel trap. Show you the external of Frosty's Bottle Ford Falcon, one of my favourite racing cars in the world. So this has been the Ford, the car I know the most about. So like I say, understeer at times, feels bulky, feels heavy, but what do you expect from these sorts of things? So we're going to move on now, and we're going to jump into the Commodore. Okay then, so here we are in the Holden, just getting ready to go out here. Now you can see the Techno Autosports and VIP Pet Foods thing, where the sat-nav would have been in the car. It's a pretty cool little feature. Blue flags coming out the pit lane, so I'm just gonna let these guys go. Love this track. The car feels much quicker. Feels much more nimble. Got a bit more front end grip. Different sound on the engine as well. So each car has its own unique engine sound. Don't need to feed it as much as you did in the Ford. I wasn't feeding through second like I was before. It's almost like the Holden dances And it's the same length as the Ford, it's the same size, but it feels much more agile. Almost, it feels like it's got a shorter wheelbase when it hasn't. And I feel like I'm going much quicker. I can afford to throw it around a bit more, which is nice. Got Davy Reynolds just ahead. A bit more traction in this car as well. It's got loads more front end grip. Trail braking into the hairpin here. Bit unsettled going over that curb. Honk to you too, sir. Oh, bit of a lock-up. Took it a bit too far. So what it's like going through turns 1 and 2. Nice. Feels so much quicker. This is unbelievable. But I'll be doing similar lap times. Just letting you hear the noise of the engine. There's Chaz. You're a wanker, Chaz. And now I'm upside down. Ah, thank you, kind sir. I might leave that in, you know. Screw it. Catching up to these two Holdens here. Yeah, it definitely feels a much lighter car. I'm using the same amount of fuel and default setup. Ah. Almost. Yeah, there's Tander and Courtney. Can really push in this thing. Can't see who it was. We've got yellow flags. Pop it in neutral. And we'll just park her up in the middle of this gravel trap again. And this has been Will Davison's Holden Commodore. Nice looking car, to be honest, in this livery. So, yep, moving along. And we'll jump into the Nissan, which I haven't driven yet. So this should be fun. Right then, Nissan Altima. Not a lot to look at in the cockpit of this thing. Totally different noise. Now, this thing feels odd. Feels like I'm driving the Ford again, but a little bit... Feels a little bit heavier. I'm slowing right down for some of these corners here. Something's happening with my rearview mirrors. Usually I can see quite far behind. But yeah, this thing feels a lot like the Ford as Holdsworth almost goes up my arse. Just let him go. They're carrying a lot less fuel than I am. Honk if you're horny. Just getting used to driving this thing. Yeah, it definitely feels a lot like the Ford. Turning in very early for these corners. Just doesn't have front end bite of the Holden, but in a straight line this thing's rapid. Very close to the inside of that wall. Ah. I think I got too used to driving the Holden. So it's the difference between the rFactor 2 version and the Assetto Corsa version is that each car has its own little characteristics, whereas the Assetto Corsa one, they all drove the same. I do love how each car is different. Yet you'll still be doing the same lap times. Got a bit too greedy, but it was tameable. Bodywork. But in a way, it's weird that even though it's handling like the Ford, it's at the same time easier, if that makes any sense. I don't know how that's going to translate. It feels more on rails than the Ford. One of the cars stuck behind me. Yeah, go on, through you go. You're carrying less fuel. I didn't take any fuel out for this run, so I'm still running on the 50 litres it came with. But in a way, getting overtaken by some of the cars isn't really embarrassing because you get to see them, you know, in action. If you've seen some of my V8 races before, then you'll have seen these before. Whoa, not the rears. Holden, let's go there. Nah, I'd rather have type 2 diabetes. Forward flag. got a smile on my face. I can't think of many mods that do put a genuine smile on my face when I'm driving them. You can just chuck it into... It's got a little bit more front end bite than the Ford. Still have a little bit of that mid-corner understeer. But it's got a better initial bite. I'm going to bring it into the pits, I think. Now, Adelaide, you might as well put the pit lane speed limiter on before you're even in the pit lane. No, I'll just dump it here. So, Michael Caruso's Nissan Altima. Looks like the textures haven't been updated to DX11, but we'll wait for the newer car to come out. And we can enjoy all the DX11 goodness with that. I really can't wait for that to come out. I'm really looking forward to driving the new Commodore. And that's something you don't hear me say very often. So the final car in this little mod demo / review thing, it's going to be Scott McLaughlin's Volvo. Oh, there it is in the background actually. Scott McLaughlin's Volvo S60. Alright, and then the final car in this little video is the Volvo S60. Again, a weird cockpit to be in. And again, different engine sounds. Lighting up the rear wheels coming out of the pit lane, that should get some temperature into the tyres. And immediately this thing is nippy. I don't know about you watching at home, but does this car feel or look faster to you compared to the Nissan? It's like the Holden on steroids. Swedish steroids. Just chuck it into a corner and it goes. Now, I've driven this car around the Top Gear test track and had a barrel of laughs doing it. This is my first time taking the Volvo out on a inverted commas real circuit. I might have to drive this more often because this is unbelievable, Jeff. Yeehaw! Oh, got a bit too trigger happy with the brakes. If the Holden was dancing around this track, this is like break dancing. I don't know, like a more extreme version of what it was. Let's try and overtaking move. Nah. Thought better of it. Switchback? Properly got a grin on my face. Absolutely love these cars. Deja vu, I've just been in this place before. Bump draft. There's one of the Penske Fords. Or the pesky Fords. I don't want to to stop driving this car. I'm having too much fun. Really get the power down in this. I love it. I don't love it. Look, the rears again. Like I said, my first time driving this, I've just jumped straight in, no setup job or anything. Just trying to see what's what with it. Oh, cool. Thought having a bit of an initial D moment. There we go. Much better. Deja vu! What an eventful session we're having. There goes one of the Red Bulls. And there's Chaz. Another Holden. I'm not having a good day. Ugh. But it's nice to leave in mistakes like this. It shows that I'm human. We'll bring it back round into the pits and park up and have a look at the outside. Oh dear. Flat spotting the tyres to shit. But actually round here, speaking of tyres, you'll do about 20 laps on the softs easily. Now, if I'd gone from the Holden to the Volvo, I think it would have been a bit easier, but this thing's mad. Oh, almost had a Simona moment. And park up in front of this ute. And there we go. Scott McLaughlin's Volvo. Yeah, there's a bit of bloom on that, so it's not quite DX11 ready, but yeah, really can't wait for the new mod to come out. So, yeah, a bit of a debrief, a bit of a recap, and I'll see you back in showroom view. So, while we're here just watching the same screenshots of the cars from the beginning of the video roll round again, I thought I'd just add a few notes on the performance of each car. Now, like I said, each car handles differently and needs to be driven in a slightly different manner, which is probably the greatest feature of this mod, and not many modding teams do that for this kind of series. It's usually the same physics for each car, and each team being cosmetically different to the last. But they're not so different that one car is inherently easier, in inverted commas, than the others. So if you're a fan of Holden, you can just jump straight into the Commodore and go, if you're a fan of Ford like I am, and so on and so forth. So for league use, this is fantastic. You know, people can just choose their brand and race equally, and none of the cars will have a massive advantage over the others at certain tracks. They're all the same for every track I've driven on. Now look at the VEC, for example, where most of the GT drivers are either in Corvettes or Ferraris because of the BOP in that series being a bit, skew width. Now a while back I did a hot lap video that I might put a card to in the top right hand corner of the screen, where I drove the Aussie Legends mod around Bathurst with the modern equivalents, so the things like the late 70s Falcon, the late 70s Commodore, and then the 2016 Falcon and Commodore. So in the modern Holden, I set a 203.9, and that was my first attempt at a proper hot lap around Bathurst, which is only a tenth of my personal best of 203.8, which I set in the Falcon. And if you've been here for a while, you'll know that I've spent way more time in the Falcon than any of the others, and today was actually the first time I went out in the Altima. So I'll go over the performance differences of each car now, as opposed to doing it while driving, or here in a bit more detail at least, because it's hard to do it while driving around, and you can sort of put it all together afterwards, if you see where I'm coming from. So the Ford was a good car to use if you've got a smooth driving style like I have normally. It feels heavy, it feels lumpy, but you'd expect that from these things because of the engine being at the front. Now, understeer can be an issue if you're not used to it, but a bit of time in the setup screen, you'll tune that out no problem. The Holden feels a little lighter, and like I said in the driving section, it dances a lot more around the track. And it's probably easier straight out the pits to drive than the Ford, but people are saying that once the tyres pass the best before date, it becomes almost a different car that can easily catch you out. Probably a little bit easier to throw the car into a corner as opposed to having a smoother driving approach with the Ford. But having said that, I found the transition to the Holden smooth, and the learning curve wasn't steep at all. I literally just jumped straight from car to car. The Nissan is a weird beast. Remember I said at the beginning that all the cars are the same length, width and height, and the drag was the same and all that bullshit. But even with all of that, the Nissan feels like a massive car. And it's an odd sensation. It's like a more extreme version of driving the Ford. It looks like it's bigger than all the others too, but with it being big and heavy, it's an absolute weapon in a straight line, like all the others. And you spend all the time driving it thinking, how the hell am I going to get this stopped? And the Volvo was the absolute opposite of the Nissan. It feels, looks and all that much smaller than it is, despite it being exactly the same size as all the others. It's such a chuckable car, and it suits the driver that likes to throw the car into a corner, and a driver that likes a very, very, very pointy front end. Now in a downforce car, like a single seat Formula 1 type thing, brilliant. In that, not so much. I wouldn't pick that car all the time. It's good for throwing around a track like the Top Gear Test Track or Adelaide, but I think I still prefer the Ford. Not because I'm a Ford guy, I just prefer driving the Ford. It suits my driving style. But if you are brand new to V8 supercars, try taking the Volvo out first and then see which one you feel like driving afterwards. And then you actually come to race these cars. They're massive, they're heavy, and they're all fighting for track space. And there's going to be a lot of bumping and barging and all that good stuff, and that's what makes them so fun to race. So if you are used to downforce cars, these will be very hard to drive, especially on a green track. Take these cars to Simmons Plains and race them on a green track. They are virtually undrivable. But when the track gets a lot of rubber in, and you get used to the sheer amount of power versus the lack of downforce, they become so rewarding to drive, and they're so much fun. And once you realise, oh my god, I'm driving this big lump really quickly, you get this weird sensation of satisfaction, if you can see where I'm coming from. And once you've picked up the habits of driving a V8 supercar, you will be able to drive anything. Like anything. If you've got like a high-powered late 90s Formula 1 car with no traction control, if you've been driving a V8 supercar for a while, you can jump straight into that, because that power progression, the progressive throttle application, will be second nature to you. So that's pretty much it for this mod review, demonstration, driving tips video, whatever you want to call it. It's finally got around to doing a review of the V8 Supercars mod for rFactor 2. So if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like this, hit the subscribe button. Sorry that I haven't been around for the last week or so. Work's been manic, so when I get home I want to just chill with some transport fever rather than go racing. But I'm going to try and get back into it as soon as I possibly can with some more videos this week. So, yep, all that said, I might go and play some transport fever as it so happens. So, thank you very much for watching. I've been Ada Millward. Have a great day wherever you live in the world, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Goodbye.